Councillor Robinson, you're now live on YouTube.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the November Rushcliffe Cabinet meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that this Cabinet meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. A recording of the meeting will be available afterwards at the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, under the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information England Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting. The use of such images are beyond the control of this council. I'd like to welcome Councillor Jem Walker to the meeting, and to Councillor Jones. He'll be asking questions, Councillor Walker, and we also have a question obviously from the member of the public as well. So I'd like to move the first item on the agenda is the apologies for absence, please, Ms Tambini.
There are no apologies for absence this evening.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay, minutes of the meeting 12th of October 2021. I'll ask Councillor Levine to propose those.
Yes, I'd like to propose that we accept those minutes.
Seconder? All those in favour? Good. Okay. Good. Okay, so and then we have citizens' questions that we have from a Mrs. Susan Edwards, who's not with us, but so I'll read out the question, and this will be to Councillor Edivine. Do you consider that the presence of an energy from waste incinerator, 3 times the size of the local Eastcroft incinerator on the Ratcliffe-on-Soar site, will have a positive or negative effect on attracting future business to the site? Councillor Edivine.
The answer to that question is that we really don't know, or we couldn't say, but we are confident that the energy from waste plant is part of Uniper's vision for the future of the site, which we expect to include a mix of different energy generating schemes as we move away from coal-powered electricity. The site is likely to be of huge interest to businesses that are delivering energy and technologies for the future.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Edivine. Okay, now in terms of opposition group leaders, Councillor Walker, if you'd like to go to the table, please.
Good evening. What are the very special circumstances Cabinet feels will outweigh the potential harm to the Greenbelt should its status be removed from the Ratcliffe-on-Soar site?
Okay, Councillor Edivine.
We are not yet in a position to comment on this. The work will be done as part of the local development order process, and to comment in advance wouldn't be appropriate. The Local Development Forum Group, which is, as you know, a cross-party group, will be part of the process, and they will have the opportunity to discuss this matter prior to the local development order coming forward for determination.
Question, Councillor Walker.
So the kind of this very special circumstances isn't a national kind of framework, it's just decided, will be decided on the spot kind of at a meeting. How will that be? Will it be taken to council when we'll discuss this?
I'm still not sure that I could answer that question because it will be discussed, as I've just said, it will be discussed by the Local Development Framework Group. So clearly we have a paper tonight on the Local Development Order that, if approved, will then be discussed by and there's quite a lengthy timetable within that process. So it will be discussed and it will go to the Local Development Framework Group for further discussion.
Okay. Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Thomas, who's not with us, so I will read out the question. Does the infrastructure item, indoor leisure provision, include village halls and community centres that are used for a range of physical activities such as badminton, exercise classes and dancing, as well as other leisure pursuits, or is it just the large Rushcliffe leisure centres that can benefit? Councillor Edmund.
As a borough, we do have a leisure provision and a leisure strategy, which includes indoor leisure. The indoor leisure provision primarily refers to indoor sports rather than the broader community uses. And as such, the larger leisure centres managed by RBC are the primary areas which have been identified as the priority for the infrastructure in this category. The focus of the infrastructure list in the SIL document is on strategic priorities, which likely won't include items like village halls.
Okay. Obviously, there's no supplementary question because Councillor Thomas isn't here, so we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which is item 6, which is the electoral review, which I will present this paper now. So back in March 2021, we participated in a boundary review. The Commission looked at that and they came back with recommendations that we actually stay as 44 councillors. The consultation was across between May and July. The second stage came back to us on the 5th. Sorry, I beg your pardon. It went to councillors between May and July. The recommendations and feedback has now come back, which is in Appendix 1. They came back on the 5th of October. So this paper is to review the feedback from councillors tonight. And the deadline that it will finally go to the Commission is the 13th of December. So this will be going to full council next week. So in terms of the summary of the recommendations, point members of the Cabinet things, responding to planning consultations and attending all resident casework. This spreads the elected members very thinly, causing confusion within the ward in relation to effective governance and leads to further disengagement of local democracy. The council believes that single member wards in large rural areas will result in much more effective local governments. I think some of these wards have got 7 or 8 parish councils. Of course, many of them are on the same evening as well, so you just wouldn't get that attendance. And we think that's obviously very important, that's pointed out. We also disagree with the proposal for the new Barton Lefevers ward and the Bunny ward and make alternative suggestions for the Commission to consider. The Council's concerned about the creation of a new ward for Barton Lefevers, which is significantly in advance of the population of the new Fareham community and does not take account of the emerging identity of that community, which is likely by the nature of development to be very different to other areas. Instead, it proposed retention of the current Gotham wall for this area. In terms of proposal for the Bunny, and will it be on the walls instead? We should have a stronger community ties to the existing ward. The primary transient temperate population and the city-bound professionals, the closely established academic and artistic Lady Bay community demonstrates a lack of knowledge and understanding. This is also a desktop exercise, and we certainly believe that Lady Bay has a very distinct identity. As it says there that this has been done really at a distance, and as I say, the council suggests that the existing 2 wards are retained, but accepts that some internal boundaries may have to change. And lastly, as well as the observations summarised and contained in more detail in Appendix 1, We strongly recommend that the Commission visit both Bingham and the existing Trent Bridge Lady Bay wards in light of the comments that councillors have made. As we've mentioned, COVID has been very difficult, but we do believe that there should actually be an in-person visit with that. So I think it's a fairly comprehensive response from councillors. I'd like to thank all the councillors who did respond to this, because it is very important as we move forward. So as I said, this will actually be going to full council on the 3rd for further debate and discussion before it goes there to the Commission by the 13th there. So I'd like to move that recommendation on page 5, item 2, which recommended the council endorses the draft response to the second stage of the LGBCE consultations, the council response, and recommend its approval at council. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we all recognise that these reviews need to take place periodically to make sure that the number of councillors per ward and the overall size of the council, particularly where many wards are experiencing considerable growth, are reviewed to ensure that the population of the borough is properly reflected in the democratic process. But I think, as you've made clear, Councillor Robinson, this has essentially been a desk-based exercise, and we know the reasons why that had to be. But what it does mean is that they have failed to capture some of the more important characteristics of the area and to understand the way that different settlements, villages and communities interact and relate with each other. As you've said, there are particular impacts on some of the more rural areas. As is so often the case, the realities of rural areas are often overlooked or misunderstood, particularly from a distance. So some wards, such as East Bridgeford or the proposed new East Bridgeford area, for example, would be so geographically extended that some members would be required to attend meetings, maybe 15 meetings a month over a whole range of parishes, which is clearly unacceptable and will damage the ability of people to relate clearly to their local members, and was the associated inconvenience of travel time, and not least the environmental impact of attending so many meetings across a broad rural area. There are also natural communities around areas such as Tollerton and Lady Bay, which you've talked about, which would not be well served by these proposals. And I think it's important, in this country, all our politicians at every level have always had close connections to their local areas through parishes, wards, divisions and constituencies. And I think it's really important that we maintain that the link with people's sense of identity and belonging, and that needs to be reflected through the democratic process. So we welcome the opportunity to comment on the Boundary Commission's proposals, but there really are some aspects that can only be properly understood by a visit on the ground, probably, and they do need re-examining with the benefit of that detailed review. So I'd like to second the report this evening and to second the proposal that we accept the report and submit it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brent. Any other comments at all? Councillor Moore.
Well, I'd like very much agree with what Councillor Brennan has just said. I mean, I live and work on one of these wards that's going to be expanded. I mean, East Bridgeford, with 15 parish councils to be dealt with every month, is a huge commitment for anybody. My own, Naslockton and Cropwell, that's got 8 parish councils. Now, if you have any sickness for another councillor or anybody away for an extended time, that's 8 parish councils a month to try and get to do. I'm religious on trying to get to every one of my parish councils, to every one of their parish council meetings. And I can give them a good service if I do that. I can be there, I know what the problems are, I know what the issues. But this one is going to be very difficult. It's also, I'd like to drive them around it, because for me to go out to one of these meetings, it's a 30-mile round trip at night, coming back. And the geographical size of it. I've worked in multi-member wards, and then at the last recommendation we had on the alteration of the boundaries, they said to us, councillors can give a better service if we have a smaller ward, but with a single councillor. And I have, it's proven to me that I can look after my parish councils, there are 2 of us on the ward. So yeah, I really agree with Councillor Brennan, and all of our councillors' views when we discussed it. So yeah, I'm happy to take it further, but I do think I really would like these people to come out away from the desk and have a look at the size of these wards.
I think that there were a number of criteria when they drew up these changes, and obviously the major driving one was in terms of the ratio of residents to the actual council itself. But as you say, there are incredibly important links with parish councils as well that need to be taken into account and that are manageable, and that we keep those links very, very strong with it. So yeah, we'll certainly welcome this report going to them. Hopefully that visit done in very difficult times, also with COVID. Most they said it all been for the 13th of December. Any other comments at all? Good. Okay, to the vote. So proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Brent. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda is item 7, which is the community infrastructure levy allocation spend process. Councillor Edwin.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. We've had the community infrastructure levy in force within the borough for just over 2 years now, and the proposals we're being asked to approve have been through the Growth and Development Scrutiny Group. Appendix A of the report sets out the criteria for using SIL money, both across the borough and how that can be spent locally. And section 4.1 of the report sets out, we have set out extra money which we're providing for parishes and non-parished areas without a neighbourhood plan. Parishes with a neighbourhood plan are allocated 25% of SIL monies collected on developments within their parish, and this money can be used for local projects within the guidelines of the SIL protocol. By law, parishes or areas with no neighbourhood plan can receive 15% of SIL monies for local infrastructure projects. And we've always wanted to level up this, and will allocate a further 10%. It must, however, be stressed that the further 10% has to be spent locally within the strategic spend priorities and will only be available there. So although we are giving non-neighbourhood plan parishes and non-parish areas extra money, there will be some strings attached to that, but it does mean that they will have a more say in how the extra money is used in their areas. And because of that, I therefore propose that we accept the recommendation which is set out in paragraph 2, and namely that is that the Cabinet it is recommended that Cabinet approves the draft community infrastructure levy framework appraisal document, SIL, appraisal doc procedure, and recommends its adoption to full council.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Moore.
Yes, SIL's been around, as Councillor Edwin said, now for a couple of years. We're busy collecting money. It's a large amount, but it's not a huge amount compared to the actual 106 money that's been coming in. But it is now quite a significant amount, and it's very important that we spend it very carefully. And Councillor Edwin mentioned the fact that the rate for parishes without a neighbourhood plan has been standardised at 25%. And that means that's good news to me, because chairing the West Bridgeford SIL and 106 means West Bridgeford will get the 25% because they don't have a neighbourhood plan. So to me, that is very, very good news. And it's also good news to many of the smaller parish councils who haven't got the wherewithal to build or create a neighbourhood plan, and it spreads the money around quite equally. So yeah, it's a good report. It needed to come forward now. The money's beginning to build up. We need to know how we can spend it and get it into local, relatively small infrastructure improvements. So yes, I'm extremely happy to second that.
Yeah, I think, as you say, I think this is really leveling it up and making it much fairer for everyone. I know there was some discussion when it first came in, and the government first wanted this differentiation, but I think it's really important that we have that consistency and fairness right across the borough. And I look forward to many of our parishes, town councils, West Bridgeford, spending this money, because that's where it needs to be, not with us. Any other comments at all? Okay, so as recommended, set out there on page 5, sorry, not page 5, page 23, on section 2 by Councillor Edovine, seconded by Councillor Moore. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, moving to the next item on the agenda, which is the Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station Local Development Order.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. So this report constitutes further steps from a planning viewpoint in creating the opportunity for the Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station to be redeveloped beyond its lifetime as a coal-fired power station. The power station is a strategically significant site within the borough and is a key component of both the Freeport proposals and the East Midlands Development Corporation proposals. We've worked closely with the owners of the site, and after looking at all the options available, it's considered that a local development order is the best route to securing future redevelopment of the site, the owners wishing to transform the site into a multi-use complex with a low carbon energy focus. In order to meet the requirements of qualification for Freeport benefits, businesses will need to be up and running by the end of September 2026, which is why the local development order is the best vehicle to use. And it is in fact recommended that local development orders be used by the government in their guidelines on setting up freeports. The report considers the fact that consideration is being given to removing the site from the green belt as part of the Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan. But it does point out that the timescale of this plan doesn't facilitate the timetable required to bring forward the site within the terms of the Freeport procedures. And I'd stress that whilst the first step is to approve tonight's recommendation to Cabinet, this is a draft document and it will be considered firstly by the cross-party local development framework group and secondly by full council. There is a timetable attached to it, which includes public consultation as well. And in order to do this thoroughly, the LDF group will require an amendment to the council's constitution to include this recommendation in their terms of reference. There's a clear vision for the development of this site already outlined in accordance with the terms of reference for both the Freeport and the Development Corporation. And in sections 4.7 through to 4.17 of the report, the reasons for the suitability of the LDO as a correct vehicle are given along with an outline of the process, stressing that the local development order gives Rushcliffe as the local planning authority a great deal of control to ensure the site is developed within the vision put forward by the landowners, but supported by the borough to bring economic prosperity and opportunity for the future. This is a huge opportunity to build on the already high importance of this site to the prosperity of our borough in a way that will help us to transform to a green economy of the future. And I therefore propose to accept the recommendations in part 2 of the report. And that is on page 3 of the report, at page 29, it is recommended that Cabinet approves the preparation of a local development order for the Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station site. B, agrees with the council that the council enters into a memorandum of understanding with the site owner and works with them to prepare a draft local development order to be brought back to Cabinet for approval. C, approves the draft timetable at Appendix A. D, approves the following addition to the terms of reference for the local development framework group in the council's constitution. The local development framework group shall consider and make recommendations to Cabinet or council on all draft local development orders and any other relevant documents. And finally, E, agrees that the Director for Development and Economic Growth should act as project director for the local development order and oversee its preparation and all associated consultations.
Thank you very much.
recommendation because of the opportunity that this site will create for new and major business activity and the creation of a substantial employment that can be achieved by the early delivery of this project with its low carbon energy focus. So I therefore second the report recommendations as in A, B, C, D and E. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor English. Undoubtedly, this is not just a strategic site for this borough. This is a strategic site for the East Midlands, in fact, for the country, because this has unique strategic importance, particularly its location of where it is, being obviously right by the M1 and the airport. Obviously, recent announcements, HS2 will actually be going into this right by this site as well. So it is a very, very significant site, and around that we'll have the Freeport, and we'll also have the Development Corporation as well. So as Councillor English and Councillor Edwin have stressed, it is really important that we do facilitate the journey for this site, and that we support that in its journey. I'd just like to point out to members, under 4.12 is that under the MPPF, encourage local planning authorities to use LDOs to set the planning framework for particular areas or categories of development where the impact would be acceptable, in particular where they could promote economic, social and environmental gains for the area. And as we've seen, a major support for this site is green technologies, low carbon manufacturing, research, etc. So it really does meet that criteria. Now, despite media reports certainly today that I've seen, we are not actually given planning permission tonight. What we are doing, we're actually given a framework in which it will be considered, hence the local development order. So this meeting is not giving planning permission for anything at the Ratcliffe on Source site at all. It's a framework, it's a tool that the government has in there. I believe it's the first time this council's done this, I think, with this. So it is very unique, and this reflects, I think, the importance, as I said, not just locally but nationally for this site going forward, and the many, many thousands of jobs in a very, very green economy that we want to move to. So, as been stressed as well, this is the start of a journey. There's got to be a lot of consultation, both with the public, with the elected members as well. They've got to have their say there. With the journey, hopefully heading to full council next November, having been through cabinet as well, before that as well. And of course, several engagements there with the local development framework. So democracy is really important, that people do have their say. The public consultation starts on Monday, I believe, doesn't it, for 6 weeks as well. So I'd like to publicly ask everybody to get involved with this, to get their opinions to the authority. As I say, it is a very, very important site for everybody involved with it. But I certainly would recommend that this is exactly the right tool, the right time for us to take forward, and that we start that journey tonight. Anybody else would like to make any comments? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Well, really, just to reiterate your point about it, I'm really pleased to see this come forward. It gives us a really useful tool. This site is potentially incredibly exciting and incredibly important to us in Rushcliffe, but as you said, it's also possibly unique in the country in terms of its transport connectivity now, especially with the news about HS2, whatever misgivings some people may or may not have about it. The fact that we've got road, rail and high-speed rail and air and road all convening on that one site, I think it makes it a fantastic opportunity, and I suspect there'll be a huge amount of demand for people to want to utilise that site. And so it's really important that we as a borough council have a tool to enable us to make the best of that for the wider borough, and that it becomes something that is a jewel in the borough's crown. So I think this is fantastic, and I really welcome the fact that it's come forward, and I'm happy to support it.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments? No? Okay, so as proposed by Councillor Edwin, and the recommendations that are set out there in the paper, seconded by Councillor English. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Last item on the agenda is the COVID-19 update, which I will quickly give. So the last update I brought to Cabinet was in July 2021. And obviously since those, the major timeline was 19th of July when restrictions were actually removed, although obviously there are still recommendations in place. I'll just cover a few main sections of the update in the paper. There's been the £106,000 of European Regional Fund for Welcome Back funding that we've used with events, and the appointment there of the temporary town centre manager. And I'm delighted that we managed to put £10,000 to 6 of the big parishes and town councils across the borough to help them with their high streets and their specific areas. Leisure, which obviously is one area which has been hit really badly with the pandemic. It's good to see the usage up at 80% compared to pre-pandemic times. We're working at the moment in this building with the arena, where we're going to change the bowls facility there to promote it more sports and exercise in terms of the all there, and bring it back really into use. I'd like to acknowledge the £37,000 from the county, which was focused certainly on children and healthy eating there for 5 to 16s. I know that's been received very well. In terms of staffing, we've had 97 employees of the September who've been self-isolating, with 31 testing positive. Just re-emphasise, as we do at this paper, the incredible success that we've had supporting businesses, £15 million across 6,500 payments that have gone out to support businesses at absolutely key time. Great testament to Mr. Linfield and his team there. And also mention the events which are set out in 4.8, which now we've managed to get going again. Because some of the highlights there was the proms in the park there, which again received very well as people came out with tremendously well received. And it's good to see over 77,000 people have attended these events already. So I think that's tremendous. And of course, I believe it's this Saturday we'll have the Christmas-like switch on, which hopefully will be very well attended. I'm sure it will on a very, very cold Saturday night. All the notable updates was we signed up with the Nottingham Knots Compact working in the voluntary community centre. In terms of our properties, that 96% tenancies that we have across our properties, which again is very good. With rent holidays, 134k we had there, which now been reduced to 65k as people start to pay back after the rent holidays. And finally, on this paper, obviously very key is our support with the whole track and trace and the vaccinations, the programme. This Monday, the booster has obviously been rolled out across the borough, people over 40. And that will now be delivered across surgeries, pharmacies and hospitals. The 18th of October this year, we got handed back to us, should I say, the Gamston Community Centre, which played a real pivotal part in the initial vaccine rollout. And again, very well run, great testament both to Health Authority and to our officers in getting that facility in place and being so one across that. And lastly, we still obviously have the mobile testing centres, which again are really important as we fight this pandemic that we currently have there at Cotgrave and Bingham. So that really is a summary of the update on COVID since July 2021. And I'd like to move the recommendations there on page 49, section 2, set out there. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Well, I won't repeat what you said because you've covered it very comprehensively, but won't it be fantastic when we don't have to have these reports anymore and COVID-19 just becomes something we deal with every season like flu? Unfortunately, we're not there yet. It is a very positive report, and officers have clearly worked extremely hard to support our recovery as the regulations relaxed over the summer this year. And as you said, we've had some absolutely fantastic events and really, really good feedback from people. And I also think because people were just loving being able to get out and be with people again and enjoy themselves in a safe environment, that really excellent programme of events. As you said, the leisure centres have had a really difficult 18 months and they're bouncing back now, along with our support for local kids with nutritious meals throughout the holidays and the quick and efficient way we paid out grants to businesses. So it's all been really, really well managed, and I think credit due to the staff and the officers who've brought all of this forward. And I think the only other point I'd make is that the report does stress that we need to respond flexibly. Should things change, let's really hope that they don't, but should things get difficult again as the winter progresses, it's clear in here that there's a flexibility built into our response. And should we need to roll things back again, then we are well placed to do that as well. But hopefully that's not going to happen. So I'm very happy to support the recommendation to receive the update. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Very good point you made at the end. The COVID hasn't gone away, and we need to make sure that all our residents have their boosters, have their jabs, and they support it. As we said, we've got a lot of resilience now built into the council as well. We just hope that we're now on a journey away from pandemic. I'd say getting back to normal, not quite sure what normal is anymore, but I certainly all want to get back to certainly a better way of working, and we need to basically support our residents and our business to make sure that we're on that journey going in the right direction. So proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan. All those in favour? How's that? Great. Thank you. This is the last item on the agenda, so thank you very much indeed this evening. Have a safe journey home. Thank you.